Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. This is it. This is it. This is the day. This is Manchester City's chance to say goodbye to Sergio Aguero, the farewell. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I've been joined, of course, by Ahsan, the connected one, the 9321, to share this mutual pain this morning. I woke up to a text from Ahsan saying, Steve, do you want to chat about Sergio? I was like, yeah, I do, actually. I do and I don't at the same time. Good morning, mate. Are you okay?
Morning. Yeah, I'm all right. I genuinely woke up a bit sad today. And when I say sad, I mean really like not football, we lost a game sad. Like I woke up like sad and heavy. And as I kind of went through the timeline and began to see the tweets, it just made it very, very real. And it's come round. It's weird how the last 10 years have gone like that in the blink of an eye, and yet so much has happened. I don't think you can pay tribute to Aguero and his impact to us as supporters and to Manchester City as a football club in one day or in one video or one podcast or one newspaper article. That legacies like the legacy that he's left at City and is going to leave at City, they're not summed up in single events or single moments. They live forever, basically. You know, I don't think that if Manchester City goes on for another 100 years or 1,000 years, the 10 years that Aguero spent here will be at the front of every book that's written, at the front of every article that's written. You know,
for me, I've said it before, and I hate and love Sergio for this, because on that day, that infamous day, the 93-20 day, football changed for me that day. The football was never the same again from that moment onwards. And I'll go into why in a second, but to have the power as an individual to change someone's life and to change the perception on the sport watched by billions of people, that's been part of the lives of so many people, to have that power to do that in one single moment, that for me is Sergio Aguero's legacy. And what I mean by change football that day is like what Sergio did for Manchester City Football Club. What he did for that was he changed what it felt like to support this club for me as a person. And what I mean by that is I never really expected to be able to feel this way about Manchester City. I remember when all this money came from Manchester City and we felt great and we felt dead lucky and all this kind of stuff. And I remember being in the pub on transfer deadline day celebrating when we signed Robinho, thinking, oh my God, we're signing stars. But I didn't know then quite what we were getting into. And I didn't know quite what we were getting into when Aguero signed for Manchester City. But several months later, what he did that day is not only did he give us our first league title in an awful long time, he changed the course of football in this city. He changed the course of football for us as Manchester City fans. He wiped away the most dramatic, the most Hollywood. You're a writer, Ahsan. You know what it is to write things. And to write this moment, it would be. I tell you what, if you're a writer, if you write this, someone would tell you you're being cheesy and over the top, and that would never happen.
They'd tell you to cross it out. They'd tell you to cross it out. They'd say, "What? No,
it's trite. Like it's cheesy. Happen. It's on the nose. Things like that don't happen." And it was the way that Ferguson was on the pitch. It's the way that we thought we'd lost it, and then to grasp it from the jaws of defeat. Basically, we grabbed victory from the jaws of defeat, and Sergio did that. And that's what he gave it to us. And that basically for me, and you're a relatively similar to age to me, Ahsan, that was years of pain and suffering from the hands of our rivals, if I'm being totally honest, absolutely banished away. And I know we'd won the FA Cup beforehand, but this was definitely the moment when Manchester City fully arrived. And it was iconic. And for me, honestly, at that day, it felt like we completed football. And even if we win the Champions League, it'll be great. But nothing could compare to that moment for me, which is both invigorating and both terrifying at the same time. But that moment there, that build-up of emotion, it was the peak of what football could ever possibly mean for me on that moment. And that is Sergio Aguero's legacy. And that's the guy that's leaving today. And as you said, time comes around so quickly. I mean, he's grown old in front of us in terms of football. A footballer.
I've grown old during his time at City. Do you know what I mean? If I go back to, I feel I'm unrecognizable as a person from the person I was 10 or 11 years ago when when Aguero joined the club. So he's almost been here for a generation in that sense. Look, I think, when I think about what Aguero did, right? He did something for me, which I imagine that he did for a lot of Blues. And it's going to sound weird. He turned us into rags. He turned us into United. The way that United fans were previously, yeah, Aguero made me that. When people say to me that I'm arrogant when I talk about football, that's Sergio Aguero's fault, because for years we lived in the shadow of United, and then Aguero pitched up. And the thing with Aguero was that not only was he stupendously talented, but he was South American. He was a wonder kid. He was the type of player that only the Real Madrids and the Barcelonas sign. And then he came to Manchester City and he made it his mission to humiliate and torment the rags. And he started on 93-20 and he just didn't look back after that. And I realized this morning that I talk about Man United in really dismissive terms, yeah. I genuinely, whenever people bring United up, I'm like, they're an irrelevance to me. Like, call me when they matter to my life. They just don't. They're like the inferior football club in the city that I live in. And guess what? That's Aguero's fault, because he put them to the sword so many times. He went to Old Trafford and just went, nah, this is my gaff now, so many times that in 2011, 2012, even 2013, there was still a sense of, are we better than United? Are we, where are we in this race? Yeah. How long is it going to take us to get past them? Man, Aguero just went, you're done. Do you know what I mean? Think about the Pellegrini derbies. That's for me, Sergio's legacy is making us as a football club so good we could take it for granted. Aguero was the guy who, over a 5, 6, 7, 8 year period, just did things that we began to take for granted. We'd play football for 20 minutes and then he'd go bang from nowhere and the ball would go in the back of the net and we'd be like, yeah, Sergio, obviously, next. Do you know what I mean? There's not been a player in my life before him. There was no player that came close. In the time that he's been at the football club, nobody has come close. We've not signed anybody since who's done what he did. I don't know if we ever will. I just don't, because it was about so many things. It was about his age, about where he came from, where we were as a club, what journey we had to go on and we were about to go on, and the type of character that we needed to go on that journey. Like, people can hate Man United. They can't hate Aguero. They just can't. He's too good to hate.
The thing is, for me, is that what sums up Aguero is like, it's not about his brilliance. Aguero's about a moment in time. Genuinely, he's about that moment, that feeling, that exact moment that you can't replicate. We could sign another striker, and we could sign Haaland, and if Haaland scores 30 goals a season for the next 10 years, or Kane does, or whatever, it's not going to be the same. It can't possibly be the same, because where we are right now is because of Aguero. And Aguero will always be that building block. He's Paul Dickov on a billion times bigger level. You know what I mean by that? In terms of the reason Dickov is so popular with City fans is because he's popular because he was there for a moment, and what he got, he changed the course of history in this club, and Sergio did that. And like, I guess the point I'm making is like, I see it a lot when people, for example, now I see like people going, "Oh, Fernandinho should get a statue," and the sentiment is great because they're saying Fernandinho is an incredible player, but he shouldn't, because he's not Sergio Aguero. And what I mean by that, Aguero was there at the start, and it's not about brilliance. And if it was down to brilliance, you're damn right. Fernandinho and people, they're up there at the very top in terms of brilliance. But it isn't just about brilliance for Sergio Aguero. It's about the emotions. It's about the journey, isn't it? It's about the journey that we've all been on as fans and as a football club. And that's why Sergio Aguero, people like that, and Kompany and Silva, those three in particular, are getting that statue, because they helped change this club. Not help this club just win trophies. They helped change this club to who they are right now. And that's what Sergio did in a way, in a brutal way, that everyone feared, man. You only got to look at his record in the Premier Premier League against everyone else. I think we do. I think the last 2 years where we've got so brilliant and we started to win sometimes without Aguero, and last season without Aguero. Sorry, this season without Aguero as well. And we've learned to win with, Jesus and Sane and Sterling over the years. I think, if anything, we probably started to take Sergio for granted a little bit, because Guardiola's team is such a collective. It's not about the individuals anywhere near as much as that. I think people need to go back and actually watch compilations of Aguero's goals and all that kind of stuff, because he's better than even I remember, and I know he's incredible. Yeah. But I watched the compilation a few days ago, and I would recommend everyone doing it. If you're fragile today, I don't make any apologies, because it's going to really hit home. But the absolutely insane quality of his finishes and movement and intelligence as a footballer, it's better than I remembered somehow. And I think the last 2 years of Aguero coming to the end, and I think it's a defense mechanism. You start to realize what's happening, so you start to make peace with him going. But as a result, you possibly subconsciously play down him a little bit, like, oh, we're fine, we can move on without him, and we can. But it isn't fine when you go and watch what he's done for us. And I think everyone should go back and really try and remember that. Sergio, whatever for being a one, you can't.
Yeah, you can't replace him. You can't. I realize that more and more and more, that you can't replace Aguero, because Aguero isn't just about goals. Like you say, Aguero is about so much more than that. And I think his legacy is our complacency at our own ability to win football matches. When I'm telling you, as City fans, our complacency predates Guardiola. By the time Pellegrini left, we felt entitled to win. You know why that is? Because Sergio Aguero made winning look really easy every week. And when a guy makes it look really easy every week, you forget that it's really hard. And I think that we've seen, we didn't win. We've not won. This season is the only season I feel that we've won without Aguero. We didn't win anything last season. And the year before that, that's Aguero's title for me, because if he doesn't score that goal against Liverpool, we do not win that fucking title. And that goal is still in his top 3 goals for Manchester City for me. And just thinking about it makes the hair on the back of my neck and the hair on my arm.
I've just got goosebumps as you said that. It's literally got goosebumps.
It's his legacy. The most beautiful thing about his legacy is that, for me, it hasn't fizzled out. It hasn't faded. The time is absolutely right, because that goal against the Scousers is fresh in my mind. Yeah. That title is fresh in my mind. So it's as hard as it is, it's right. And nothing lasts forever. And I'm okay with being ready to say, see you later. Do you know what I mean? I'm okay. It makes me dead sad, makes me feel things. And football generally doesn't make me feel that much anymore. But this really makes me feel things. Proud, happy, feel really lucky that we got to see the best years of a historic player, of an iconic player. I think I will watch not just like highlights reels, but I think I will go back and watch the Sergio games, 5 goals in 20 minutes, the hat-trick against Bayern, that Liverpool game, 9-3-20. There's so many.
That's it. I was just thinking that, you genuinely, one thing about Aguero is great, which we know he is anyway, is I can think of incredible goals against all the big teams. I can literally, everyone. You can think of destroying Chelsea for hat-trick. You can think of destroying Arsenal. You can think of the immense Liverpool goals, not just the one who won as the league in 18-19. Or was it? So Or you can think of the one as well where you put it in from the weird angle and all that kind of stuff.
This is my question: which is the better goal? The one against Alisson for the league from 2 years ago, or the one against Reina where he's basically out by the corner flag and he goes. I
have strong feelings about this, and I think the one against Alisson, is one of the most perfect striker goals you will ever see. And the reason that I love the Alisson one so much is because there's no one else in the world scores that other than Sergio Aguero.
No.
And I genuinely mean that. And
Yeah.
to be honest, maybe the Reina one as well. But the Reina one strikes me something could do, I don't know, like just like, oh my God, I've scored the best goal of my career kind of thing. You know what I mean by that? Whereas the Sergio one, it's almost just pure instinctive technical brilliance that makes that so possible. This, and also the celebration, the moment, the way he runs past the crowd. I remember that was the best game of football I've seen in the Etihad personally. And genuinely for me I get goosebumps thinking about it because the tension and the atmosphere. And don't get me wrong, we were brilliant, but Liverpool were fucking immense as well. Liverpool were incredible that day. They were so utterly up for that game. And genuinely, the quality of that finish, the ferocity to smack that with his left foot up into the roof of the net. And the best thing about it is when you see it back when you're about the commentary and that kind of stuff, it's just nonchalant. It comes from a place of knowing exactly your ability and what you can do. For me, that goal really sums up Sergio Aguero. And it's his trademark finish as well, isn't it? Genuinely his trademark finish. The absolute power and the ferocity of that strike. Maybe, I don't know if it is a better goal, but for me, it's a perfect striker's goal because it's what you pay a striker to do of that immense quality. And I honestly don't know anyone else who takes that shot with a weaker foot from that angle, that instinctively. And Guardiola talked about him yesterday in the press conference, or the day before, sorry. He said Romario-esque. And that's what he means with that kind of stuff. That same instinctive, incredible brilliance. Other than that, man, like then you once again, you think there's just so many goals against United. You know, there's so many goals against pretty much every other rival of ours.
The Phil Jones meme. That was an Aguero goal.
That moment ended Phil Jones's respectable career for what it's worth. Genuinely did. Like, see, he turned him into a comedy moment, and that's it.
This is what I mean. Like, I think that the fact that Aguero gave me putting Man United in the bin is because you know that, like, in the end, football is about rivalry. Football is about if you're from Manchester, it's about United and City. It's about the arguments. It's about the derbies. It's about he's better than him. That's what football's always been about. And we were always second best. Simple. We were always second best because United, even if we won a derby, they could go, yeah, but call us when you finish above us in the league. Well, now, for the last decade, Sergio Aguero has given me, fucking call me when you finish above us in the league. Until then, don't talk about us. You're not as good as us. And that's purely Aguero. I know that there's a lot more involved. I know it's a team game and all of that sort of stuff. But very specifically, we had an inferiority complex when it came to Man United. And Sergio Aguero single-handedly put that in the bin, tore it apart, tore them apart over and over and over again until we now feel entitled to beat United. When United get a point off us now, we get pissy and we yell at the manager and the players and go, that's not acceptable. They're shit. We've got to slap them whenever we play them. That's a legacy of Aguero. That's a legacy of Con because he did it so many times that it just became second nature and we got used to it.
Thing is now, I want to ask you this basically. I'm torn on this. I personally made my peace with Sergio leaving about a year ago. I felt the injuries were going to catch up to him. I felt like it was going to happen. And when his contract was running down, I think we're not going to extend it. I just had a gut instinct, and it's come true. I'm not happy about that for what it's worth. But what I will say is, how do you feel about Sergio leaving right now? Because he's left, if we're being totally honest, and I don't want to sound offensive to Sergio, a relative whimper. You know, he's not really been involved this much this season. He's very much, it's been token appearances for him when he's came on, and we all wanted him to be, involved, but he's been very much, and I think he sensed that as well. So don't give me harsh saying that, because you see it on his face when he's been on the pitch a few times where he wants to be involved. Obviously, we want him to scoring loads of goals, but I guess the point I'm making is, well, I guess if he scored loads of goals, he'd want him to stay. So is it the right time for him to leave? Is there any regrets how he's leaving right now? I guess that's it, really. Is it the right time for leaving? Is there any regrets that you wanted to see him do a little bit more? Or if he did more, would it have been tempted us to give him a contract? And then would that have been the right idea? You know where I'm coming from with that? Is it?
Completely. I think, for me, the time is right. I think it's unfair to say that he's going out with a whimper. And the reason that I say that is because I think
on a
that
personal level, I guess. I mean,
yeah, I do.
as
I
opposed
get
to-
you're right. Like on a, I understand that, but a man who was given and delivered so much, yeah, and even so recently as the title before this one, yeah, he was so central and integral to that that I like I said earlier, I almost feel like now's the right time because that memory is still close enough that you feel like Aguero left while he was still relevant. And
Yeah,
I,
I agree.
I'm slightly different to you in that I'm a little bit worried that he'll go somewhere else and score a lot of goals. But at the same time, I understand the fact that everything must end eventually. And there's just like you have to look after the football club. You can't just look after a guy or the legacy of a guy. So I respect the club's decision and the manager's decision. And you know, when I think about Sergio going and having a swan song in Barcelona, for example, it makes me dead happy. When I see him wander, you know, this guy has lived in the north of England for the last decade and he's from Argentina. Just take a step back and think about that. He's lived in the north of England for a decade. In the last few years, since Silva left, people have begun to talk about, and even as that was building up, Silva leaving, people have begun to talk about the fact that Sergio and David did as long as they did in Manchester. Even that, it's not been talked about enough, and it isn't given enough credit. It's look around the league and feel free to point me in the direction of players of that talent that Real Madrid and Barcelona would knock every other summer, and both of them, being Spanish, being South American, chose to stay in England. And not only did they choose to stay in England, but they performed at the highest level possible, yeah, and were integral to their team's success. It's unheard of. It's never happened before. Simple. It's just never happened before. Aguero's, for me, he's the greatest foreign import in the Premier League, full stop.
It's a big shout, and it's not even a fair shout either, man. He's yeah, and I think the way he adapted to this league and this country and this lifestyle says it all, really. I mean, when you're it's international playboy like Sergio Aguero, you can do whatever you want, you can go wherever you want, and I guess also that that's another part of his legacy at Manchester City Football Club in general is the fact that he stayed here. You know, like he showed, like, look, you don't need the beaches and you don't need the hot weather. You can get that whenever you want to. You can be you young still, come to Manchester City, play for 10 years, win an awful lot of things, become a genuine legend of the game, and just see it out. And he's normalised the idea of just going to an unfashionable city to play. And let's be honest, Manchester is a great city, but if you're overseas footballer, you're not choosing to live in Manchester. You'd rather live, in many other warmer climates, especially if you're from Argentina. But Aguero has just shown. And just shown that doesn't matter, man. And David Silva did that as well. And that is also their legacy as well, that they'll point to these players and go, look, if you want to come to Manchester City, you can build a life here. You can settle down with a family here and you can have an incredible life, winning and being loved by fans and being part of this journey. And I guess there always needs to be the first to do that. And Sergio and obviously David Silva as well were the first to do that. They were the ones with Vinny as well, of course, and Dabra and whatever. But they were the ones that really changed the perception of this club in terms of superstars. And we know for a fact that we talked a lot about Kane and Haaland and all these kind of people and whatever. they don't exist without Sergio Aguero. No. They don't exist. You know, these players have been influenced by him. And the idea of them coming to Manchester City doesn't exist without Sergio Aguero. He is the building block for these moments. And he's not just another player. And I guess that's the point I'm making. We've said it 1,000 times now, but it's always worth repeating. Manchester City are now who they are because of Sergio Aguero, and that is a definite moment. The line, this pre-Sergio and this after Sergio, and I genuinely believe that's true. The club changed exponentially when he joined Manchester City, and a genuine superstar. And I guess maybe you're right. He probably should have been at Barca or Real Madrid. They're idiots. They should have dropped 60 million for Atletico Madrid and signed him, and he would have. He would. But I'm glad he didn't.
He refused approaches from both of those clubs over the decade that he was at City. I still find that so hard to believe, but it's facts. Like, he living in England, having me, as soon as I'd done 93-20, I'd have been on the phone to my agent going, I've come here, I'm a year in, I've won the league against their rivals with the last kick of the game, get me to Barcelona or Madrid right now. Do you know what I mean? You'd at least, at some point in that journey.
Well, City, you're right, because City weren't there yet. They weren't there to convince you to stay. They weren't. So.
But you know what? That speaks to something that we don't see a lot, but we have to respect. And that is, behind the scenes at the club, they treat players so well.
Yeah.
The environment inside the club is so good that players generally don't want to leave. Players want to come here, as opposed to Manchester City is now a final destination in the way that Real Madrid, Barcelona are or were final destinations. And I almost would argue that in England, it's the only final destination for foreign players, because I don't think that Liverpool, United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs could be classed or considered final destinations for the world's best players, certainly foreign ones. So, I
think you're right. And you're proof, by the way. Look at the constant rumblings of people like Salah with linked to Real Madrid and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't really happen on the same level in Man City. It just doesn't. It doesn't. And
that's why Leroy Sané was such a weird exception, because he's the only player I can think of to be given that opportunity by the club and to kind of be a bit arsey about it. I don't remember. Like, I think City are too loyal generally. I think that if they sign you, they love you and they respect you. And if you do a good thing, they'll always reward you. I'll never forget, after Pellegrini's first title, Dzeko and Kolarov both got new contracts, and neither of them needed new contracts. I think Nasri got one too at the end of that season. None of those guys needed new contracts at that point. Yeah. But cool, they won a title and the club went, no, we reward you. And it's not about money, it's about acknowledgement and respect. And I think that's what, behind the scenes at the club, you have a lot of that.
And that's huge. And players want to feel heard. Players are fundamentally egotistical people, and that's not a bad thing. It's because they are. They're superstars. And superstars want to feel heard and loved, and they want to feel rewarded for their successes. And you're right. And maybe that's what keeps all these players so long. And it is crazy for a club that apparently had no legends, how many we're building in such a short period of time. That's what I will say. And it's not because they've won stuff. It's because they've won stuff, been here for a long time. And that speaks volumes, that the likes of these players, the likes of Sergio, Zaba, Aguero, and now, of course, we get into the next generation that are going to be here for absolute the ages. We get into the likes of De Bruyne and Fernandinho, and there's going to be even more. And like Sterling's been here for absolute the ages now as well. Like, we forget about these things, that players have been here for a long time now. Like, it's been, how many seasons has it been for Sterling now? 5 or 6, something like that. It's been
5 for
5.
And Raz have been here for 5 seasons.
5 years. That's a long time, man. That's a long time in football. That is, and realistically, we know they're going to be here pushing 10 anyway, but most likely, for me, it's like we underestimate just how much, once they're in, really, if we want them to be in. And that's you're right. And that is, City are a final destination club now. And that is hard to sell. It's hard to prove that. And it's hard to make that the norm. And that's what City have become. And once again, that is because of Sergio Aguero and David Silva and so on. It's because these great players have shown that is what you do, and there's almost an expectation. And it's a City culture now. There's a culture that if you come to Manchester City, you stay here and you win a load of trophies, and that's it. And you don't moan, and you crack on, because you're paid incredibly well, you're loved incredibly well, and you get to train with the best coaches in the world or whatever, and play with the best players in the world. And that has become a culture. And Aguero has helped build that culture at Manchester City. And Aguero has built it with integrity and grace, and he's been a part of this for so long, and that is the other side of it, that we forget about all the brilliance, but he set a standard, hasn't he, as well? I mean, and at times as well, and we know he wants to play, and there's a couple of times where there's been slight rumblings of discontent. Jesus took his spot briefly, but that's right. That's how it should be, in my opinion. If you've got a superstar who sat there on the bench willingly, it's not the right kind of superstar. But even then, he never handled it badly, I would say. He just wanted to play, and he was a little bit miserable, but that's fine. I'm a little bit miserable if things that I want don't go my way, but it doesn't mean I'm going to leave or whatever, or kick off or anything like that. It's just, you want to succeed, don't you? And like players want to succeed on an individual level to help the team, and Sergio is a great example of that. And just humble, down to earth, and he's very much part of us now as who we are as a club. It's crazy to say this, man. Go on.
I want to bring a little bit Harry Kane into this, just in the sense that I think it's right that they target somebody like Kane. I think 2 months ago when we were talking about replacing Sergio, it was just more like a natural thing. You'd go, well, we've got to sign a world-class striker. But what I realize now is that when Con walks out that door, there'll be fucking nobody there who does that thing that Aguero did. And we've had a season where we've been incredibly fortunate that we managed to win the Premier League and get to the Champions League final without a guy who can do that. But that's just not sustainable. And
yeah, I agree.
For me, I look at somebody like Kane and I go, because like when he walks out the door, I want us to keep winning next season. I don't want to go back 5%, and I don't want a project. I don't need a guy to come in and be a project who might be world class in 2 years or in 3 years' time. And that's not a slight on Gabby Jesus or anybody. I know that the club likes to sign young players, and I think it's great that you sign young players. But sometimes, every so often, you need the finished article. You need the real deal. For me, when we signed Kevin De Bruyne, he was a little bit like that.
Sergio's a real deal as well at the time we signed him. But go on, you carry on. You're saying.
I think Kev was a little bit older, and that's a little bit what I'm pointing at and leaning towards is that every once in a while you just need the pure class. You just need the. I don't want Pep to have to arrive at preseason training and go, rah, so I've got like 8 weeks to try and teach this kid how to play the positional play system and what I expect of him. They can look at a guy like Harry Kane and go, he played under Pochettino for 2.5, 3 years. He'll be fine. Like, tell him what to do. He understands, he'll learn it. I think, it's almost like in a temporary way, you need the finished article, and then that allows you to go over the next 2 years or 3 years, let Liam develop, or decide that, you know what, after 2 years, now we can go and bring another young guy in because Jesus has gone as well, and we can see if we can discover another wonder kid to push Kane. But the point is that right now, as we sit here today, with all the emotion of Sergio leaving and looking at everything that he did and the goals that he scored and the trophies he won and the legacy he's going to leave, you can't replace that. You physically can't replace it. Yeah. So from a footballing point of view, what you want is to not go backwards, not even by 5%. So I completely get why Harry Kane is the guy. And I wonder whether, like, you remember Khaldoon last summer when he said, obviously we're going to target young players, but for the right older player, we will make the exception. Now that I've read that they tried to get Kane last summer, I wonder whether they've had, this has been a little bit of a longer term plan even than we realize in terms of bringing in specifically Harry Kane and going, all right, Pep, for this, what happens post Aguero, you don't need to, it won't be a project. It'll be a guy that will just hit the ground running.
Yeah. If only he was as handsome as Sergio, hey, that's what I would say. Like we don't, I just, he's only looking at, no offense to Harry, he's not the worst looking fella in the world, but he's not Sergio, no one ever will be. And like, there's an element of that.
I'm glad he's not young. I'm glad. No, you know what? This is going to.
Oh, no, it's not young thing. I'm talking about that cheekbone. That's what I'm talking about. Man. Cheekbones. Like we're losing a member. We're losing. We are losing a very marketable player as well, which is worth pointing out as well. Like that stuff matters in the boardroom, man. It definitely does. Sergio Aguero sells shirts. He sells shirts.
Absolutely.
And he's a superstar. One thing I will say is Guardiola touched in the press conference as well about what he could have achieved if he hadn't been injured a lot. And I do think that's it's a pressing point, really. And I think we forget that Aguero has achieved everything he's done, while also, sadly, genuinely being injury prone. And the phrase injury prone is tossed around a lot, but sadly, it's kind of true with Sergio. He always had a spell out on the sidelines. And I wonder what he could have achieved. I wonder what Manchester City could have achieved if he'd stayed fit all the time. Because I feel like there would have been league titles that we would have won that we maybe hadn't have won, if he'd been sharper constantly. Because you got to bear in mind that when Sergio came back for injury, it took 5 or 6 games to get going as well. So there was often like spells where
we've not won the title in many seasons, right? So you just have to think about those seasons, and I'm not convinced that there'd be a lot of those seasons where the games that we dropped points in corresponded with Aguero's injury. I'm not saying that he wasn't injury prone, but I'm just saying that maybe, or for me, I definitely don't recall feeling if we'd have had Aguero fit, we'd have won that title. In all the titles that we've lost, I'm not sure how many of them were, we didn't have Con. But I totally take your point that, like, I think more about the Champions League, and I think about the knockout stages of the Champions League, and I just think about rhythm, and I wonder whether that disruption that Aguero had every season meant that we never were able to just manage him to peak. You see what I mean? To kind of peak in February, March, April, where you go, right, now you're going to explode. It
was always a December injury, wasn't it? It was always a Christmas injury. And it was
you know what I mean? It always stunted that moment. So I totally take your point. I do think in the Champions League, that's something that I probably would agree with it and go, like if we'd have kept him fit, maybe our Champions League campaigns would have evolved slightly differently.
I mean, looking at his stats, he only the most games he ever managed was his first season with 48. And then after that, he was 45 in 16-17. And no, 46, sorry. I always think he should have scored 40 goals for Man City in a season. And I think that's the thing that he should have done. I feel like he should have done that a few times. And Aguero, I feel like with peak rhythm and peak fitness and a luckier body in terms of looking after him, I feel like he would have been nearly a goal a game kind of player, especially in this Manchester City side. That's one thing. I wish we'd had peak fitness rhythm Aguero with Guardiola, because I don't think we ever got that at the very best. And you can see by his goals, like 20 goals in 31 in 16-17, 21 in 25 in 17-18. That was the Centurion season. Imagine if he'd played 38 league games that season at peak fitness, you're looking at 38 goals. And I genuinely mean that, because that side was absolutely banging them in. Then in the 18-19 season, 21 in 33 league games. And once again, you feel like a lot of those games were catching up fitness again, where you feel like once again, if he'd stayed fit, you're looking at probably 35 goals in the league again, which is it's a shame is all I'm saying, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything, but I guess I just think what could have been, I think we're conditioned by
Messi and Ronaldo, because we've lived in the Messi and Ronaldo age where they took goal scoring to that another level. And so now we talk about, like Harry Kane the other day did it, that, I can see myself scoring 40 goals a season. I think that 40 goal a season thing is something that is post Ronaldo, Messi, Lewandowski, Guardiola. That's the effect of that collection of people on football in the last decade, is that now we look at forwards and go, the very, very, very best, they get to 40. But I think in general, Aguero's numbers for City are still exceptional. It's still find another foreign striker who comes to England, sits here for 10 years and does that and collects all of those trophies. It's something incredible. Else. Yeah, it really is.
Scored in 17-18. Kane scored, that's when City were batting everyone, scored 41 in 48. So he's broke 40 before. And I bet he's looking at, he's had 35 goals before, 32 this season in 48 games. And once again, proving me wrong with the injury stuff there. But once again, Kane knows if he plays for Man City, instead of scoring 32 goals this season, he does score 40 goals. He does, and that's this, and I think he's right to say that for what it's worth. But either way, this is Sergio's day. This is Sergio's day, man. I'm going to be there today, so I'm buzzing. I'm absolutely buzzing. So if any you guys are there watching this, say hello if you see me and Nicola. We'll be there. I can't wait. I can't wait to do it. I can't wait to see it. And I'm delighted for Sergio as well, by the way, that there is going to be fans there because he deserves that. So David Silva deserved it. I'm gutted he didn't get it, but right now I'm glad for Sergio because Sergio's moment was bigger than anyone else's moment at Manchester City. Definitely. So if anyone deserved the fans there, I would say probably be Sergio because he's changed our lives absolutely loads, man.
If COVID wasn't around, I imagine that the boxes would be filled with his former colleagues. Do you know what I mean? I think that, I'd expect David Silva there, I'd expect Zaba there, I'd expect Vinny there. Like, there's just that you would expect a lot of people to be there, and you're very lucky. To everybody who's going today, you're very, very, very lucky. It's
incredibly lucky.
It's a weird one to feel like to be there.
Yeah, man. How do you feel like how do you feel about his? I mean, will he get on the pitch? I'm worried that he's injured. I'm genuinely worried that because Guardiola was keeping his cards very close to his chest. I've got a feeling genuinely he is actually injured. So I wonder if we'll just see him for 10 minutes or something like that. Or do you know differently? Please say you know differently. I want to hear differently.
I have no idea, but what I will say is that today should have the feel of an exhibition game of football. It shouldn't actually be anything. I personally expect Everton, if Aguero's on the pitch, to be basically ushering him through to the goal and going, "Go on, lad, score a goal." Really, genuinely.
They've got stuff to play for Everton, haven't they? Annoyingly,
no.
The Europa Conference League.
No, can they not? I thought they couldn't finish any higher. I thought
they can finish 7th. Oh. They're bang on level with Spurs, unfortunately, and they could even technically with an 8-goal swing, they could finish 6th, which is Europa League as well. So they could actually
an 8-goal swing.
It's West Ham, yeah. So that's a lot for West Ham and City. But what I will say is that they'll probably be looking at, basically can finish 7th, which is Europa Conference League if they want that. So they can actually finish. I don't know if they want it or not, but they might want it, and I think they're going to play a strong side, unfortunately. Yeah, they might not, but I don't think they'll be shown not to want it. But you're right. I mean, what I will say is like when it comes 3 o'clock and we see the lineups, and this goes to everyone watching. If Aguero's not starting, it's because he's injured. It's not because Guardiola's being a dick. Guardiola is stubborn and but he's not that stubborn, man. If Aguero is not starting simply because he can't, that's it. Like there's no manager in the world that wouldn't start Aguero today unless he definitely couldn't. So I'm prepared for that already, people.
I think it'd be Aguero's call. Call. So basically,
I agree.
Guardiola will just go, you can play unless you don't want to play because you're worried about your next move and you don't want to pick anything up before you do a medical. But beyond that, I think they'll be like, if you want to play, get on that pitch and have a buzz, mate.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I totally agree. On that note, mate, I'm going to start to wind down because I've got to go prepare to go to the Manchester City game to say goodbye to Aguero, which is it's absolutely insane. But it's been a pleasure chatting to you this morning, man. I needed that actually. I think I needed that.
Me too.
I'm going to be sobbing. I'm going to be sobbing my eyes out later, and I'm not ready for that at all today. Hungover.
I've kept it together.
Sergio Aguero is he's everything we could ever hoped of and more. He's the coolest fucker in football. He's absolutely badass. He's ours. He's an adopted man. He scored the most iconic moment in Premier League history. That is his legacy, by the way. The moment no one else can boast that moment. No one else can. When Sky and BT are still rolling 25, 30 years, it will always be the Sergio Aguero moment. It will always be that because that is the most iconic moment in Premier League history. And that is Sergio Aguero for you. He's that good. Guys, enjoy his last game at the Etihad because why not? Because it's the last time we're going to get to see it. I don't like it. I just realised how much I hate saying that. But I hope he scores today, man. I hope he scores.
Yeah, me too.
You won't see. Just please, Everton.
There won't be a dry eye in the house if he scores. No, there will not be a dry eye in the house if he scores.
Guys, you're all absolutely awesome. Go check out the 9320 podcast as always. That is linked in the description below. Loads of incredible content there from Ahsan and the lads as well. They're absolutely awesome. For now, though, enjoy Sergio's last ever day. And of course, there won't be a watch long because I'm going to be there as well. So I'll be live after the game. I might even try and do a match day vlog. I don't know. It might be a bit weird with all the social distancing and stuff, but we'll see. For now, though, guys, see you later. Keep it together. Come on, City.